Good afternoon, everybody, and I appreciate all the people who are in attendance right now for our third community forum about reopening. I'm Chris Brown, superintendent. Don't mind the glare behind me. We're going to be going to a presentation here pretty soon, so it shouldn't be an issue for anybody. First thing I'm going to do here, I got to mute myself on our YouTube channel because the YouTube feed is about 25 seconds behind the regular thing that I'm doing here in our Zoom feature. So what we're going to ask you to do is, as you're logging in, there will be, anytime you would like to ask a question via the chat feature in YouTube, you can go ahead and do so. What I'm going to do right here is, to show you where it is, you should see my name. It might say Christopher Brown on it. I'm going to type in here that this is a test message. Once you see that, it may come up in about 30 seconds. You'll be able to post questions as well, okay? And you'll also see that Erica Hasselstrom is also indicating where you can post questions as well. So what we've been able to do over these past few Zoom sessions is, I want to give you a little bit of a presentation about where we are in terms of our planning, look at some of the safety features that we're adding for both our students and our employees, and then take a look at how things are going to be as we get closer to the start of school. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to share my screen here in just a moment. Thanks for bearing with me. I appreciate it. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see that. We have our 2020 reopening community forums. We held 2 yesterday, one from 1 to 2, one from 4 to 5. You can find both of those on our YouTube channel, which is where you should be right now. You can find the recordings of those. And then now we have today's from 5 to 6 p.m. If you missed the forums yesterday, don't worry, because what we're doing is we're taking all of the questions that were asked and we're pulling them out, and we're going to put them into the frequently asked questions document that we have located on our website along with our reopening plan. You just have to give us a couple of days to get those all posted. It's probably 4 or 5 pages worth that we have to redo. So what I would like to do tonight is kind of take you through our safety requirements. I want to show you what the building plans are going to look like and why at Valley, at Gorham, and at the middle school and high school. But then most importantly, get an opportunity to take your questions and hopefully provide answers as we move forward here towards the end of August. So first thing has to do with transportation, and we have pictures here of our school buses, but there are really 4 different ways that children will be able to get to school. The first one is via the school bus. The second one is mom or dad driving their child to school. The third one for some of our older students is they can drive themselves. And the fourth one would be mom or dad dropping their child off maybe in the morning, but then having transportation bring them home in the afternoon, or vice versa. And all of those things are able to happen with no issue. We just need to be in contact with Leanne Shipman from our transportation department. One of the pieces a parent asked yesterday, what's the single most important thing that parents can do to help for us getting towards the start of school? And probably the most important thing for us is to teach your children and get them wearing masks on a regular basis, because a big part of us being safe at school has to do with proper mask wearing, and children will be wearing masks most of the day. The second thing is social distancing, and the third thing is proper hand washing. There is a fourth thing, and that has to do with transportation of any type. If you are sending your child out the door for school, you are telling us that your child is well enough for school. And that means your child does not have a fever, your child is not exhibiting any symptoms of COVID, and parents, you'll be receiving an email from us soon that'll have a list of, it's going to have a list of symptoms for COVID, but we're also going to have a copy of the questionnaire that we want you to ask yourself about your child every day before you let them out of the house, no matter how old they are. And as long as you're feeling that your child is well, you'll let them out of the house. We will spot check at school for temperatures and all of that. And we may be giving calls home to families to kind of go through the survey with them, just to check for understanding, to make sure that if the Department of Health were to contact us, we have logs that we've been checking in that our parents are doing what they need to do on their end before they send their children out the door. So let me talk about the school bus just for a second, because there are a couple of different things. We're going to be asking kids to wear masks at all times, unless they have a medical excuse not to wear a mask at school. And right now, as we sit today, I have 2 students in the entire district who have medical notes to not wear a mask at school. What that would mean is they would still be socially distanced and all that. They just wouldn't be wearing a mask. So let's just say your child comes out of the school, or I'm sorry, comes out of your home and is wearing a mask, comes to the bus. I met with the bus drivers today. They'll be greeted by the bus driver. They'll enter the bus because they're wearing their mask. And we're going to be seating 1 child per seat on the bus. So what that means is on a 70 passenger bus, that means that we'll have approximately 22 students sitting on that bus. Now we can add to that in a couple of different ways. If a child has a sibling or siblings, those children can be seated together. And also, if we have children that are coming from the same daycare or childcare, that those aren't socially distanced, we can seat them together as well. So you might find on a given day, maybe you have 22 students on one day, 17 students the next day, 27 students the next day. It's okay, because the kids will be wearing masks at all times. And I think the most important thing to remember about social distancing is that it's social distancing in so much as possible. There will be times where social distancing can't be maintained, and everybody understands that. And as long as we're wearing masks and it isn't a regular thing, we're going to be okay. So now let's talk about the child who comes to the bus and maybe mom and dad are already at work. Child forgets their mask, comes to the bus without their mask on. The bus drivers are trained they'll have boxes of masks, and they'll ask the child to wear a mask. If the child puts that mask on, then there's no problem. They'll get up on the bus and they'll go to their assigned seat. If we wind up with a situation where a child gets to the bus, says they're refusing to wear a mask. My mom and dad told me not to wear a mask. I'm not wearing a mask. You can't do anything about it. We're not going to send them back to the house, because we know that moms and dads are probably at work or whatever. So we're going to have them sit in their assigned seat without the mask. We're going to bring them to school, and they'll be met at our different buildings by the building principal. The building principal is going to take that child, have a conversation with you. We're going to have that child go home if they're refusing to wear the mask. And then we will decide with you how long your child is going to be out of school and on virtual instruction until they're able to wear a mask every day on the bus and to school. If you're driving your child to school, just make sure that when they get out of the car that they're wearing a mask. Parents will not be entering the buildings in the morning at any building. So we will have employees available outside. So if you're dropping your child off, you'll be met at the car, and you'll be met at the car and will be walked in by one of our adults, and so on from there. We do have a question. My student is in middle school. I work at the FLSS building. I have no problem transporting my child, but when it's time to go home, there is a 15-minute difference. Will she be able to wait in the door area for me? She likely will not be able to meet in the door area for you, but we will be able to make another accommodation, I'm sure. So Christy, if you could send me an email to cbrown@mwcsd.org with that situation, I would appreciate it, and we can take a look at it for you. Okay, thank you. For our student drivers, the expectation is that they'll be wearing masks as well. They will get out of their cars, they'll enter the building at the high school, and they will go about their day. And what we're going to try to do for social distancing at each building, and we're working out some of the final details now, for Valley and Gorham, if they're taking the school bus, We do have multiple entrances that we will probably use to keep the children as socially distanced as possible. We also want to make sure that we have good traffic flow for parents who are dropping children off. And, that's probably going to take us a few days to figure out the best flow of traffic, to be honest. And until you're actually doing it, you can do as many tabletop exercises and models as you want, but until you have cars and buses and people coming to school, you don't know what you don't know. So it'll probably take us a few days to make that drop off as smooth as possible. And we appreciate your patience in advance. For the middle school, high school, when the buses arrive at the middle school, high school, we are also working on some drop-off strategy, and that strategy is going to probably be towards the front of the bus. I'm sorry, towards the front of the line and the back of the line. Students will be getting off of those buses, the first bus and the last bus. Those two buses will leave, and so on and so forth until we get to the center. Our bus drivers and I have all been trained on how to disinfect the bus. It's about a 1.5 minute process. It's kind of a spray can of sorts, if you think of it that way. Or if you work at home around the house, you kind of pump it a little bit, it puts air in, and you can spray. And what you do is you walk from the back of the bus to the front of the bus, and the solution that comes out has a 1 minute kill time for anything that might be on the seats, and the driver gets back in the bus and goes on from there. So Leanne Shipman can answer any specific questions about transportation if you send her an email or give her a phone call, but the drivers can't wait to see the students. Heck, I can't wait to see the students. Like I said, we met today. They're excited to have the kids back and to get rocking and rolling. So that's kind of transportation in a nutshell. Food service, I'm going to ask you to ignore my bald spot on the picture there. It's getting nothing but bigger here due to COVID and kind of the stress that's happening these past few months. I'm semi-kidding. But Carla and the gang have just been rock stars, as you know. They've been here every day since March. They've done the grab and go meals. They've done the dinner service for us. They've helped out with the food link. So they know exactly what needs to happen with food service. Our Valley, Gorham, and middle school students are going to be what's called cohorted, which means when they enter the building, they are going to go to the same classroom and they're going to stay there as a group for the majority of the day. So if you are a Valley and Gorham student, that if a child receives breakfast or wants to get breakfast, they'll be able to, it'll be delivered right to the classroom. The middle school students and high school students, when they come in for food service, will be able to go to the cafeteria to grab their breakfast and be able to go. And we will have lunch the same way as well. One item of note, because I was the parent of teenagers, they're older now, but I will tell you, UPK to 12 for right now, and this has a lot to do with our vendors, is we will not be able to have point of sale products available for the start of the school year at least. And so what that means for the students and for me, for that matter, is it means that chips and ice cream are two big things that we will not have available to start the school year. And I know when my kids were growing up, I would probably want to deliver that news to them right now so that by the time the school year started, they would be used to it. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. And the same thing applies for vending machines that are located at the high school. Students use those quite a bit. The vendors have not been able to enter the school buildings by their own regulations. So we can't get the machines filled. And then even if we were able to get the machines filled, the difficulty becomes who is going to wipe off the keypads after every time a child uses it. Unfortunately, we don't have the extra staffing to be able to have somebody next to a vending machine all day cleaning off keypads. So we would have to figure that out. But before we even get to that point, we have to get vendors who are able to supply us with what we need. I'm going to take a step backwards just for 1 second. There's one piece that I forgot about transportation because we had a development today. We were able to purchase a global positioning system or GPS system for our school buses. And what that means for you as parents and for us as a school district is your children will be receiving identification cards that are going to work both when they get on the bus. They'll be able to swipe when they get on the bus. And what that tells us is the exact time that they got on the bus, and then they'll swipe when they leave the bus, which will tell us the exact time they got off the bus. And what that's going to be able to help us with in the event that we have any issues, it's going to help us with the Department of Health with our contact tracing and being able to make sure we can keep track of a student and where they went and who they were with at all times. The second thing, and I wish I had this when my kids were younger, but the technology didn't exist yet, was this GPS system is also going to give us the ability as parents to be able to go on your phone if you have a smartphone or on your computer, and you're going to be able to see the bus before it gets to your destination. So if you've got a long driveway or something like that, and you're always waiting for the bus to come, within 2 miles, it will start giving you an alert that the bus is 2 miles away, and it starts to work its way towards your residence. And so I think that's going to be a huge help for a lot of people, especially in the wintertime, I think. So I apologize for forgetting that. We won't have that to start the year. We'll have that probably within the first few weeks of the school year, hopefully. And that same identification card is going to be able to work for our students in food service when they want to go buy breakfast or buy lunch as well. So I'm going to move over food service here. Probably the next important thing that we have going on here is our safety requirements. And in the top left, you can see our basketball wearing a Whitman mask. I know a lot of you were very interested in those masks. When we got on the first time, they sold out in a couple of days. We have new ones in stock, and even my mom didn't get one the first time, but I was able to get her one this time when they came in. So you can check with Amy Carroll in our office, and she'll make sure that she sends you in the right direction to get one of these masks if you'd like them while they're still in stock. But as I mentioned when this started, mask wearing is going to be a big deal for us. And the bottom right is a sample classroom. As you're looking at the desks that are right there, the desks are just a little more than 6 feet apart. And so what would happen in a typical day, the students would enter the room, and for the majority of our classrooms, there will be 12 to 13 students in a room. If we do have some larger spaces that we can use where more students can be housed, but we need to make sure that they're socially distanced, again, in so much as possible. So what'll happen is the students will enter the room with their masks on. The teacher will have his or her mask on. Once everybody's seated and the teacher is assured that that social distancing is being met, he or she can let the students take their masks off, and the teacher can also take their mask off if they are socially distanced. We're going to be very strict about this because we want to keep our schools open, and we also want to get ourselves into a situation where we can bring even more students back to school. So, following the mask piece and the social distancing piece is going to be an important part of that puzzle. I will say, though, that the classroom won't be what I would call robotic. So just because you're seeing these desks that are set up like Norman Rockwell back in the day, doesn't mean that the students can't do group work, that they can't do center times, that they can't do science labs and all of that, because as long as they have their masks on, they can be closer than 6 feet apart. If we're in a situation where we can't maintain social distancing in a classroom, the teacher will be able to give mask breaks. There's no uniform guidance on that. So when I met with all of our employees today as well, and one of the things I told them is it's up to them how often they want to give mask breaks and for the length of time that those mask breaks will happen. Mask breaks can happen whether they're socially distanced or not. And the piece I mentioned to them is if they ever find a time where the children aren't wearing their masks and the teacher is, and let's just say the teacher wants to go walk around the classroom like good teachers do to check up on work, the teacher has to put their mask on and all of the students have to put their masks on as well. We want to make sure that we maintain that social distancing. So my guess is your children are going to come home and say they had their masks on, all day. And I think you have to interpret all day as probably most of the day. Okay. They're going to get mask breaks for sure. And when they're in areas where they are socially distanced, and the teacher allows that, they will be able to take their masks off. But it's just an important part of what we do. The hygiene part is also important. We had a very successful extended school year program that took place at Gorham Intermediate over the summer. We had a chance to bring students in and staff and support staff and actually run a school program and learn from what we were learn the good and the bad of what we were doing and make sure that things were shored up. And one of the pieces that was, important for us was to make sure that students had opportunities to wash their hands, let's say. And we thought that was going to be a big deal. But what ended up happening within the first few days is kids figured out times to wash their hands, and so did the teachers. We had hand sanitizer available in sinks and all of that, and it kind of took care of itself, as did the cleaning. A lot of questions that I get, how often our space is going to be cleaned? How do you know it was cleaned? Through our extended school year program, we met with our custodians last week, and they are very prideful as well of what they do, and they want to make sure that the classrooms are cleaned. We're going to have sign-off sheets in each major space of where a student or adult might go, and they will be very frequently cleaned and signed off with the time and the date and who actually did the cleaning. And that seemed to be very helpful for both the students and our employees during the extended school year program. And I think that same thing is going to carry into this school year. It's also one of the reasons why we have to start the school year without use of facilities. And I know a lot of people want to use our facilities. We'd love to make them available, but the major difficulty for us is our custodians are going to need time to be able to do the second deep clean into our night shift to get things ready for the next day of school. So they're going to be cleaning all day, and then they're going to be cleaning all night. It's the same reason also why we're not going to have 10th period to start the school year at the middle school and high school. We just feel that the safety piece is so critical. We want to get our processes down for the adults and for the students before we add more things. I'd rather start with a solid base plan of coming back and then add things to it than start with everything and have to take things away because we didn't handle it properly. So that's kind of how that will work. Our employees every day, which are different from the students, but our employees every day will have a survey that they actually fill out that we keep track of to make sure that they're well and that they're taken care of. Our reopening plans, if you have an opportunity, and also in our frequently asked questions, because I want to have time for your questions tonight, outlines all the things that happen if we have a child or an adult who maybe has some symptoms. They came to school totally fine, but then they started feeling sick during the day. We have every single scenario you can think of is listed out in the frequently asked questions on our website, as well as our reopening plan. So we have a question, Amanda Donovan. I have concerns about my children keeping track of the card required to enter the bus. Are these easily replaceable? Maybe I could attach it to the backpack. Amanda, I think that's an awesome idea. I've lost a card or two over the years. I'm not going to lie to you. So we will find different ways for children to keep track of those. The backpack is probably a great idea. And we also know that we're working on some lanyards for the kids that actually will have a plastic sheath, if you will, that will hold that identification card in there as well. But they are easily replaceable, and we'll make sure that we'll work through that together, especially for our UPK to 2 students. And let's face it, probably our middle school and early high school students who, again, I've had a couple have trouble keeping track of anything. So sometimes, we'll make sure we accommodate for that, but we want to start the year or when the year gets started and we get those identification cards, getting the students familiar with using them. So next, a couple of pieces that we're going to be asking is, if your child is not feeling well, please do not send them to school. It doesn't mean that your child has COVID or anything like that. I really feel, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I feel strongly that if we wear masks, if we socially distance, if we keep our hands clean, we will not have a lot of cases, if any, of COVID. But kids are going to get sick. I mean, they're going to get stomach aches, they're going to get fevers, they're going to get sore throats, they're going to get coughs. And those are all symptoms of COVID. What we'll have you do is keep your child home. I'm saying the same thing to our employees, and that applies to me. I'm the person that would go to school with walking pneumonia or whatever. And now that I reflect on that, since we're in a pandemic, that was pretty selfish of me to do that, thinking that school couldn't go on without me. It certainly can. If I'm not feeling well, I have to stay home also. You don't have to do this, but one of the things that I did is I actually went on Amazon.com. I ordered a very inexpensive infrared thermometer. And what it does, it doesn't touch your forehead or anything. You just point it at your forehead and it gives you a temperature. You know, what I plan on doing every morning, I'm going to wake up. And as I'm sitting on the side of the bed, I'm going to have the thermometer near the side of the bed. I'm going to take my temperature. If my temperature is good, I'm going to go about my day. I'm going to fill out my survey just like the rest of our employees are going to do, and I'm going to make a day of it. We're also going to be using masks. I want you to know as well as parents that we did order a lot of what's called personal protective equipment. And I'm going to tell you, I have 4 college degrees, and it was 3.5 weeks into this pandemic before I knew what PPE stood for. People just kind of threw that term around like nothing. And then I finally heard it somewhere where it was spelled out for me. And I'm like, oh, that's what it means. Personal protective equipment. We are going to have any way, shape, or form of personal protective equipment, both for our employees and for our students. So what would that mean? If you're in a position where you can't afford a mask or can't get a mask, we have masks that'll be available. We're also going to have face shields. Some of the masks that we have actually are clear, so that if your child needs to see the teacher's face and mouth expressions and all of that, we have that. If we have some children that just based on their disability may need to be handled a little bit more than other students. We have gowns that our employees can wear if necessary. We have gloves. One thing that I get a lot of questions about is if my child wears a face shield, can they not wear a mask? And unfortunately, that answer is no. It's very clear in the Department of Health guidance that the face shield is a second measure, but the mask has to be used. So we said the same thing to our bus drivers, our monitors, and others. If they want to wear the face shield, that's great, but they also are going to have to wear a mask as well. And then social distancing in so much as possible. And like I said, I know in the beginning, even I thought we're going to have students and staff marching, 6 feet apart, going down the hallways, going to the classrooms. That obviously is not realistic, which is why I think in the guidance document, it says in so much as possible. We have to do our best to keep students and employees distanced as much as we can, but there are going to be times when that can't happen, okay? We also want to make sure that, again, the hand washing piece is important. It did, I'll be honest with you, it did take me probably the month of March to get used to washing my hands more than I had been. And now it's just a habit of washing my hands, all the time, just making sure that we're okay. Again, the reopening plan and the frequently asked questions will have a lot more details on these. And I'm going to be adding the questions and the answers to what's happened the past 3 days over the next couple of days. So Troy Rutherford asked a question. Thank you, Troy. If we have to keep our child home who isn't feeling well, will we be able to have them remote learn on that day? That's going to depend on the grade level, and it's going to depend on the availability. And here's why I say that. As I'll show you in a couple of minutes here about the buildings, one of our buildings is able to get students in every day. We wouldn't have a way to do virtual instruction for your child to keep up with the class in real time. That might, and the same would apply for Gorham. In the middle school and high school, that might be possible, but we're still working through how many students need what and finishing schedules and all of that. So Troy, I'm going to say to you, if it's Valley or Gorham, the answer is probably no. If it's middle school or high school, the answer is probably maybe. And we're working on trying to make that as available as we can when we can. So let me kind of walk you through a little bit of what it's going to look like for students. And even if you have a student in the middle school or high school, I don't think it hurts you to take a look at what's going to be happening in the lower elementary, just so you know what your neighbors are going to be doing and all of that. So first of all, as I mentioned, the UPK to 2 students are going to attend school every day. The way to make that happen was we have a music teacher who's out on maternity leave. We're actually going to use the substitute for her position to do some rearranging to make sure that we are able to get all the students in every day. So what that means is that we won't have the traditional music classes in UPK to 2 until about January, probably. That doesn't mean that music's not going to happen. We've met with the music staff and they're going to talk with the classroom teachers on different things that can happen. But, you know, if you've got a child at Valley, you know how talented Mrs. Schindler is. And, you know, when we're able to get her back, we'll be able to roll forward again with that more formal music program. Students are going to stay in their classrooms for their specials, for their academic intervention services, and for breakfast and lunch. And one of the things that I pushed with the employees today pretty hard was for the start of school, you know, probably September, October, and maybe even part of November if we get lucky. You know, I'd like to see the students outside and learning as much as possible, not just in physical education and recess, because it's, you know, first of all, as we've read all the details of COVID plans and everything else, being outdoors is one of the more ideal settings for us. We don't want students to sit in a classroom all day. That's not good for the students, nor is it good for the adults, quite frankly. So we're going to be pushing that outdoor experience, and the students at Valley are going to be cohorted, so they'll be together with the same teacher and all that all day. And the teacher assignments and stuff will be sent very, very soon. I talked to Dr. Kaiser yesterday about this, and she should have those out at the early part of next week. The same for virtual learning as well. One piece I wanted to mention just briefly, we have very, very few students at Valley who have chosen to learn remotely all the time, very few. But for those who did, I want you to know, you know, what we're able to provide at this time due to, you know, staffing. The budget is tight as it is, as all schools are, and so we're not in positions to be able to go hire lots of extra people. We have to make do with what we have, and that's what we were directed to do. They'll be learning heavy math and English language arts at the K1-2 level. At the UPK level, UPK is really designed, it's really a play-based curriculum and a socialization centered curriculum. So without the child coming to school, there really isn't a way to do that virtually. So Dr. Kaiser is going to have some resources that'll be sent home to parents on a regular basis for things that they can do with their children from home. Chromebooks, we'll have Chromebooks available for students. They'll be able to take them home. For our UPK students who didn't have them last year, we have them on order right now. There's a worldwide shortage of Chromebooks due to the Intel processor. And so as soon as those come in, we'll be able to get those out. For children who require related services like occupational therapy or physical therapy or speech, that'll be a mixture of in the classroom and out of the classroom work. And that'll be handled by the classroom teacher, the case manager, and so on. So for Gorham, in third graders are going to attend in person Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday will be their virtual day. Fourth grade, Monday, Wednesday, Friday will be in person. Tuesday, Thursday is going to be their virtual day. And in fifth grade, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday will be in person. Monday, Wednesday is their virtual day. And I had a parent ask me if this is set in stone. Nothing's ever, if we can't get students here every day, then it's not set in stone. If we can find any way to pick up a day or pick up an opportunity to get students to come into school more often in person, we're going to do that. It's just that we're spread as thin as we can be right now at Gorham, and this is the best we can do to get students here in person. The way that they're going to operate is the exact same way that Valley is going to operate as well, right down to the virtual schedules that we have. And I'm also pushing for Gorham students also to be outside as much as possible, especially when the weather's warm and all of that. You know, heck, I'd like to be outside as much as possible when I'm at work. Why not? Middle school, high school is there are some similarities and there are some differences. Probably let me start with the differences. The differences are the middle school will be cohorted. So the middle school students will come off the bus or out of the car. They're going to get their breakfast if they need to. They will not be using lockers. So they're going to take their supplies and all that, and they're going to bring them right to their classroom. And what we're going to do is each teacher, so if it's a math teacher, science teacher, they're going to take turns being in the room with those students. It's a lot of time, obviously, and we'll make sure that we have breaks for the students as well. they're going to be on what's called a blue gold schedule, which is we have one group that's blue, one group that's gold. And somebody asked me how we created those groups. And I wish I could tell you, we started off, because you have to start somewhere. So we started off with A through K is the blue group, or the A group if you're in the high school. And L through Z is the gold group or the B group, depending upon if you're in the middle school or the high school. But then what happened is we had to factor in, if I have a child last name B and I have a child with a last name T and they're under the same roof, we want them to be able to go to school on the same day. So we accommodated for that. Then we're directed to, for some of our students who have the most significant disabilities, we are directed to try to find ways to get them to school 5 days a week instead of 1 day on, 1 day off. And that also was factored into our class lists or group lists. And then we also we tried to manage daycares. We tried to manage all the things that we could. Tried to manage students who don't have adequate internet at home to the best we could. And next thing you know, so if you took a look at those groups today, you probably wouldn't know that we started off with A through K and L through Z, but we did. And the other difference, I had mentioned that the middle school students will not be using lockers, but they are cohorted. For the high school, the high school students cannot be cohorted. They just have too many places to go with the schedule options that are available. So they're going to be transitioning from class to class as usual, and they're also going to have access to their lockers. However, their lockers are going to be socially distanced, and we will have designated times when they can go and use their lockers. They'll have plenty of times to do that, but it will look a little bit different than it did before we had COVID and the students left the school and all of that. So we have a question here about this. Will middle school students that have accelerated math and or science be in the same cohort, or will they be leaving their cohort for math or science? That's a great question. We're going to have to ask Dr. Cole that specific question. So Julia stumped me. I know we have an answer to it. I just don't have it off the tip of my tongue. In fact, I will text Dr. Cole. He's probably watching this actually. So Dr. Cole, if you're watching, why don't you send me an answer to that? I'm gonna ship that off to Dr. Cole. He'll give us an answer. And then the second question from Christy Robinson is, for middle school, will the students bring all supplies back and forth every other day? The answer is yes. We would like to be able to get them to lockers at some point, but when you read all of the guidance that we have, cohorting is the best model to keep students from possibly getting ill. And there's not a high school that's able to do the cohort model, but we were fortunate, I think, to be able to do it at the middle school. But that means that the children will need to bring their things back and forth. I've had a couple of great questions about books, because right now students will not be able to take materials out of the library because they're going to be, that's considered to be a shared material. However, I was asked a wonderful question today by an English teacher who said, will we be able to hand out novels to students or textbooks? And the answer to that question is actually yes, because if it's going to be assigned to one student and that student is going to have that novel or that textbook for a period of time, that's totally okay. When they come to return that resource, we'll have a place for those to go. They'll sit for a period of time, and then we'll sanitize them, and they'll be fine, and we can use them again later. So that was a good question that I actually got today that I hadn't thought of. But aside from that, those are really the two. Those are really the two big differences between the two grade levels. Got a response from Dr. Cole on that first question about accelerated math. He said, great question. It is a great question. He said, yes, in 7th grade, accelerated math students will be in one cohort, and in 8th grade, earth science students and accelerated math students will also be in a single cohort. So thanks for asking that question. That'll go to our frequently asked questions here when we're able to make those happen. So that was great. One of the pieces that we want to look at too is making sure that you have too much information. I'm a big believer that you can't communicate enough. I do apologize for the robocalls that I keep giving you. You're probably getting sick of hearing my voice, but I would rather have you armed with the facts, so we can have conversations, or you can have conversations at home, instead of hearing things at the store or wherever that may be partially accurate and then trying to piece the rest of it together on your own. So I'm going to continue with those phone calls on a periodic basis. But our website, mwcsd.org, at the top left of that website, you'll find a link that's going to have our reopening plans, our frequently asked questions. If you weren't able to, if you haven't been able to get the emails that come along with the phone calls, 98% of the time, they're all in the notes from the superintendent section of the reopening plan area. And I think we're at a point now in our planning process where you probably should start contacting the principals more than me. And the reason why I say that is, I feel like I've been given a great opportunity in a very short amount of time to be able to meet a ton of people through this process. And I think, from everything that's negative, there are positive things that come from that. One of the positive things for me is I've probably communicated and interacted with you as community members and parents in one way or another way more than I would have if we didn't have COVID. It probably would have taken me 2 or 3 years to know you as well as I know you after 1 year of being superintendent here. So that's a real positive. But we're probably getting to the point now where we're working on the final details in each building, or in transportation, or in food service. So at this point, if you've got questions, it might be a good idea to contact those individuals instead of contacting me. Because if you contact me about something that is happening at the middle school, let's say, now that we're getting down to the nitty gritty of things, I'm probably just going to contact the principal. The principal is going to contact you. So if you want to get your answer quicker, it might be better just to shoot that principal, or Leanne Shipman in transportation, or Brenda Lehman in technology, and so forth. Shoot them an email. We're all working together here, and whether we wanted COVID or not, we have it. And I think when you face adversity, it's how you react to it. And what I said earlier was, we're very fortunate to be in the community that we live in. We all work together towards common goals. We seek help when we need it, and we lend a hand when we can lend a hand. And I think that's going to help us to continue to navigate these troubled waters that we're in. And I also feel strongly that, part of being in this together is just having that goal of kicking this school year in the teeth, which is what we're going to do. We're going to adapt to whatever we have to adapt to, and we're going to overcome, and we're going to be better for it on the other side. And then we're going to celebrate that. And then we're going to celebrate that when everything is hopefully said and done. So I know we do have a delay on as I mentioned in the beginning, from the YouTube channel to my Zoom. So I'm going to hang on here for just a couple more seconds to see if anybody else might have a question. Dr. Cole also said that middle school schedules should arrive next week. Ms. Taft did send out, I would call them preliminary schedules for the high school. They will certainly be refined some, and she's going to have those, the more refined ones, out in just a little bit. And Mr. Pasho and Dr. Kaiser are going to have their schedules out in class lists and all that out very, very shortly. I have had several questions, and it's probably my fault. I've had some questions about where can I find the lists, where can I find the school supply list? And that's probably my fault, because the school supply list is actually right on our website. If you go on our website and look under the building that your child is actually in, you'll see class list link right there. And so maybe what I should do is I'll have Amy Carroll, who helps us with our website, I'll talk to her tomorrow, and I'll see if she can't pull those class lists out of those areas and maybe put them in a more visible area for parents to be able to get a hold of. But they're out there right now. And one of the things that I made sure with our teachers is I really asked them to go back through their class lists and just put the things on it that the children absolutely positively have to use. I mean, the pandemic's been tough on families. It's been tough on the economy. And we don't want to have you trying to go out and find something that your kid is going to use 1 or 2 times. That's not what we're out to do. And at the same time, we tried to order extra supplies for the children as well for this year, just to make sure that they have what they need. At the end of the day, it's my name is on this. I take a lot of pride in what we do. your safety, your kids' safety, and our employees' safety is going to come first and foremost before anything else. And we had to have someone who's accountable for everything. That person is me. I put my name on the dotted line for all of the things that I just talked about. So I'll be making sure that everything that I said to you today is going to happen once school starts. Okay. So once again, I do thank you. This will be available on YouTube probably by later tonight. YouTube does a thing called rendering, which I don't know what that means, but what it means to me is it takes 2 or 3 hours for these videos to be available to view on YouTube. So that's how I look at it. And so probably by, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, if somebody didn't get a chance to see this and wants to, they can go on to our YouTube channel where you are right now, and they'll be able to look now at all 3 if they want to, forums that we just had. So thanks again. And you know how to reach out to me. I'm very available, and I'll respond to you as quickly as I can. Have a great rest of the night, and I'm looking forward to seeing your kids in a few weeks. Thank you.